welcome to another edition of Urban Talks from the Center of Architecture and Metropolitan Planning in Prague. Today is a very special event since we are joining the virtual design festival by Dezeen. We have a full day of lectures by various speakers, so you should look at www.urbantalks.camp or just follow Dezeen. Now, we are in great company today. We have a great Japanese architect with us joining live from Tokyo. Kengo Kuma is a world-renowned architect who has designed over 300 works in over 20 countries. His practice, Kengo Kuma and Associates, has offices in Tokyo and Paris. Mr. Kengo Kuma has also written extensively about architecture and architectural theory with books such as Anti-Object and Small Architecture. Since 2009, Kengo Kuma has been a professor of architecture at the University of Tokyo. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to this great event. And I'm very excited to talk in this special situation. You're also facing the similar situation as Tokyo. It's getting better, but still, Tokyo is locked down, it's very difficult to work in the office.
And you're speaking to us from your Tokyo office, right?
Yes, I'm speaking from the penthouse of my Tokyo office.
Okay. We'll give you time now for the lecture. For all the people watching, you can ask questions to Kengo Kuma on slido.com under the hashtag Urban Talks, and we can ask him afterwards. And now I would like to pass the floor to you, Mr. Architect.
Okay, great. Okay, I want to start from this image. I want to start from this the small museum. The museum is here, and the reason why I chose this small museum for the first image is this is showing the new attitude to environment. The lesson from the coronavirus disease is the basic structure of the city, the basic attitude to nature and environment. In 20th century, the people decided to live in the city and destroy nature and destroy environment and build concrete buildings, concrete boxes. But the biggest lesson from Corona is we should going back to nature again, and we should be the friends of nature again. And this canal museum was completed more than 20 years. But in this small museum, I want to show the attitude to environment. And the location is very unique location. And the site is on the bank besides the river. And my solution to this site is building is merging to nature and is buried in the bank beside the river. And first image, maybe it's difficult to find the museum, but you can understand the location of the museum. This is view from river, and also people can walk on the museum. And this is a side plan of the museum. The upper side is Kitakami River, and Kitakami Canal. It is one of the oldest canal in Japan. Is here, and the museum is here. This is the ground floor of the museum. And promenade besides rivers, is coming to the museum without any wall, and the promenade in natures and the main corridor of the museum is basically connected, basically one space. And this is showing this relationship besides the Kitakami River and museum. And do you remember the big earthquake and big tsunami has happened 9 years ago, 2011. And this is a city, the name of the city is Ishinomaki City, so was very much devastated by tsunami. But because of this design, the museum was not destroyed. The tsunami came from right side, and then the tsunami stopped at this slope. And we are just very lucky, but our basic idea, the to merge building into embodiment, can work in that kind of tough situation. This is the entrance of the museum. And at the beginning of the project, actually the taxi drivers couldn't find the entrance, but my idea is entrance should be merged in environment, should be disappeared in environment. This is the plaza in front of the river. This shows the Louvre and the open space facing Kitakami River. This is the exhibition space underground. And this as a bench, as a circular bench, is sitting as a half outside and half inside. And it's a view from river. And next project is a Hiroshige Museum. Hiroshige is the name of ukiyo-e artist in 19th century. The Hiroshige is known as the painter of nature, and this is famous as his work, Southern Shower at Atake. As the rain he represented in this wood block is very delicate. There's a beautiful lines and the layers, and the just kind of super juxtaposition of multiple layers is showing the depths of nature. And actually, the Frank Lloyd Wright was very much influenced by his work, and also Vincent van Gogh was very much respect his artwork. And my Hiroshige Museum, I learned his method of superjuxtaposition and his method of layering. I did use local material as possible as can. The roof is covered by wood from the forest behind the building. And also I tried to create the connecting approach from village center to the mountain behind the village. This side plan shows the relationship between village center and mountain behind. And the village and mountain was a kind of couple. the nature village, nature mountain was very necessary for the life of village. And because people were using materials of from the mountain, and also the water was coming from mountain, and the fertilizer for agriculture also came from mountain. And that kind of relationship was happening not only in Japan. So every small town, every small village, people were living with mountain. And but especially in Japan, people often build shrines at the edge of mountain. And the shrine was a kind of strong message of the people to young generation. Don't destroy nature. Don't destroy the natural resources of mountain. And it's a kind of symbol of their relationship. But in 20th century, people had forgotten the relationship between nature and village. And the shrine was abandoned, and the people didn't want to use natural resources anymore. And it was very bad the situation for forest, because abandoned forest was facing many difficulties. And my idea to the museum is recover the relationship between village and the mountain. And we cut the building and to create the approach. And that before entering the museum, people should pass the approach and should look at the shrine. And after that kind of experience, the people can get into the museum. And then in that sense, museum is a kind of the experience and the kind of encounters with nature. It's very different from normal museum. Normal museum is just the books, just the space for art. But in this museum, I want to create a special experience with nature and environment. And this is the roof and wall of the museum. The materials came from the forest behind. And also the doors detail was very much inspired by the method of artists, method of Hiroshige, the super juxtaposition, layering, and the delicate lines. And this shows the sections of super juxtaposition of two layers, the roof layers and the ceiling layers. And this is the interior. And the interior also, I want to show the super juxtaposition of natural material and local material. As we try to work with local craftsmen as possible as can, so rice paper on the left side was made by the craftsmen of the village, and material, of course, from the village, and the stone for the floor also came from the quarry of the village. And of course, the wooden louvers for ceiling and the wooden louvers for the wall that came from the forest behind. As natural materials for the rice papers and for the stone walls, stone floor, and again the super juxtaposition layers. And furniture is also shows the method of artists, the layers and lines. And the next project is a great bamboo wall. It is our project in China. The site is very close to this World Heritage as a Great Wall. It is a very, very long as a structure. And we try to show the respect to this beautiful, the Great Wall. So we didn't cut the landscape. We preserve the landscape as it is. And then the building, the bottom of the building is following the landscape. And then eventually we could keep the vegetation. And the Great Wall is here. And as again, we try to use natural material. In that case, bamboo of China is not expensive material. But as we treated the bamboo with a special way to make it as a no-maintenance material. This interior, and it is a center of the building. As we call it, the tea house, as the people can spend some time for meditation and feel nature in this special atmosphere. As in Europe, we also try to make that kind of environmental pavilion. As a project in Milan, as we did use this special wooden joinery system. And EToys, it is a traditional toy from Japan, but it's a very smart system of joinery. And we try to use this as a joint system and to extend it to a buildings system. Actually, so we worked with student and the student could make this pavilion in 5 days. And dismount as a pavilion is also very easy because we didn't use nail and we didn't use glue. It is just as a fixed up by joinery system. And after this as an experimental pavilion, we tried to make the permanent building by the same system. So we worked with the structure engineers to test the strongness of the joint. And we decided the dimensions and the pitch of the lead. And this is a section of the building. It's a 10-meter high building. And this is an interior of this small museum. This wooden joinery supported the building. The section of the wooden joinery is 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters. And also this as the joinery system provide the space for exhibition. This is, we look up the ceiling. The small Buddha statues was exhibited in the wooden exhibition grid. So sometimes we did use wood, the local wood, for the bigger structure. You also have a wooden bridge. So we use local wood and work with the local craftsman for the small size bridge. As the factory of this village produce the glue lamp of this size. 30 centimeter is the maximum size they could produce. And then, so we did use this small dimension glue lamp, and eventually, so we could create this intimate space. And so this is a bridge, but the space is also used for exhibition space. And for the same village, we designed the small hotel. The hint came from this small tea house. Thatch roof was their traditional construction material. So we tried to show the beauty of this material again in this small hotel. The thatch block, practically, it is a very good and insulation material, and can control humidity as well, and also very as a soft and warm as a texture. Interiors, we brought the shops for our local vegetable and the local food. And it is a hotel, but sometimes it is showing the richness of their life. So the next project is a project in the center of Tokyo. Asakusa Cultural Tourist Information Center is sitting in Asakusa, and Asakusa is most touristic center in Tokyo. There exists the old temple, and its famous old gate in front of the temple. This is approach to the temple. This shows the relationship of the pagoda, the temple, and approach, and the gate. So our site is just in front of the gate. It is very center of Tokyo, but we try to show respect to neighbors, respect to history of the place. That area had been occupied with wooden buildings in 19th century, and we need to build 40 meters high building, but still, so each floor is showing the intimate scale of wooden buildings before 19th century. This is a section of the 40 meters building. Each 7-story building, but each floors people can feel the intimate scale of old wooden house. And the triangular space between floors and the roof is used for as a machine. And then we can maximize the height of ceiling by using this as a sectional prototype. This is a rendering, and this is a reality, and we did use real wood. As of course, we did treat the wood to inflammable material, and also those vertical louvers is controlling natural light to make it sustainable building. And the neighbors, those neighbors is a typical 20th century's concrete apartment. But as we thought, for this kind of as a special location, we should show the respect to nature, respect to history, but at the same time, it's very contemporary design. Interior and the small theaters, the cafeteria on the top of the building. The next project is a city hall in Nagoya. The Nagoya is the population is 30,000. It's a middle-sized city, the typical middle-sized city in Japan. And the location is just besides the bullet train station. Bullet train station is here, and the site is just here. But in the center of this kind of middle-sized town was almost vacant because the shopping centers was sitting in the suburb of the city, and people don't want to walk in the central city. And the mayors thought the city hall should go back to the center of the city. And he organized a competition, and our proposal is city hall with dormer space. The dormer space, I will show. The dormer space is a central semi-outdoor space in the typical farmer's house. That kind of working space as often as happens in everywhere in the world. And the people are gathered here, and the people drink here and eat here. But in the American-style house, the dormer didn't exist. The dormer doesn't exist anymore. I like the warmness of this the semi-outdoor space, and we propose the 21st century dormer space in the center of City Hall. And as material-wise, so we decided to use material from local. We set a rule, the 15 kilometers rule. The material, basically the material of this building should come as at most the 15 kilometers from the site. And to use local material, local wood, local fabric, local stucco can activate local economy, and also can activate the local culture as well. And after the completion of this, the city hall, the plaza, this dormer space, became the center of community. And also from outside of the city, the people come to visit this dormer space. And we had 5 years after the completion, we already have 5 million visitors to this city hall. This is very unusual because this is just city hall, but people are enjoying this space. People are enjoying local community and local material, local craftsmanship. And the photovoltaic panels on the rooftop, and the natural ventilation system, and also they have the arena space for sports, and that's the space for community, space for NPO, NGO, and also the political assembly hall is open to Doma Plaza, and the politics is very transparent, and also sometimes people are using this as a assembly hall for concert. And the materials, we often use local material, local rice paper for this public building. And this sofas was made by rice paper, the very durable rice paper. And the special silk also, as the farmers produce, is used for the counters of City Hall. It's very different from normal City Hall. So in China, so we also try to use local material. Maybe it's a little bit different from your impression on China. This is a museum for the National Academy of Art in Hangzhou. We did use the ceramic roof tile to cover up the whole building. And also, we tried to merge the building into beautiful forest. The roof has this as a polygon as a section, and to create the intimacy to the building, to add intimacy to the building. And we also use the same roof tile, ceramic roof tile, for the screen of the building. Those screens are made by the roof ceramic tile, and that's to create the shadow, and to protect art from natural light. And this shows the detail of roof tile. The material-wise is very traditional local material, and we work with contemporary technology to create a special effect of natural light. So I like the effect of this particle light, and the floors sometimes inclined to match the slope of the site. In France, in the city of Besançon, is close to Swiss, we built the cultural center besides river. It is sitting at the edge of the city, and it's a kind of abandoned place. And the river and the city was separated by this site. So our idea is to have the gate. This shows a gate to connect nature and city again. And also we designed this as a landscape to merge the building into environment. So we designed the landscape as well. And material-wise, so this is as old building we preserved, the brick. And this is a new building we designed, made by steel and wood. And this is the facade for city side. And this is a semi-outdoor space, and the human scale particles, and the water and landscape and biotope. And it is totally different from the site as before. And in Japan, this kind of semi-outdoor space is called Engawa space. And the Engawa space is most comfortable. It is semi-protected. But it's still open to nature, it's open to environment. And the people of the city, the people really like this space, and this becomes a new promenade of the city. It is a whole which connects nature and city center. And the effect of natural light filters are soft and intimate. The photovoltaic panels of the roof. And in the Marseille in France, it is a contemporary art center. We try to find the local material from Marseille. We found a very good glass factory. They are producing this beautiful glass, the panels. The glass panels is used to control natural light of Mediterraneans, and also we try to create the human scale for the city. This is as a mixture of artist apartment and artist workshop space and artist exhibition space. And as it's not as a old type museum. The artists can stay, can live, and can create art in this museum. And the effect of the glass screen at nighttime. And this is another French project, Aix-en-Provence, Darius Milhaud Conservatoire of Music. It's a mixture of music school and performance center. And Aix-en-Provence, we found a very good aluminum factory, and so we try to create shadows, and we try to control natural light, and then each facade has a different patterns to protect light to make a sustainable building. And also that patterns reminds us the music of Darius Milhaud, the famous French composers, rhythm, and the textures of Darius Milhaud music. For interior, we did use wood. And this is asymmetrical layout, and it is very good acoustic effect. As this is an ongoing project in France, the Albert Kahn Musée et Jardin. Albert Kahn, the museum, has a beautiful Japanese gardens. And we try to preserve Japanese garden, and we try to add a kind of wall which separate garden from the city. This is construction as a site like this, and create a rhythm, and it is a rendering. This is view from gardens. Garden side, we did use natural material as possible as can, and city side, we did use aluminum panels. And the new project in France is a station in north of Paris. It is a station, but we try to create park on the station, because that area, north of Paris, there are a few park and a few greens. The people want to have green, want to have community space in this district. And we propose to use natural material for interior and green on top of the building. And as in state, we designed this Portland Japanese garden as a culture center. And here, we try to create harmony with beautiful big trees. And also the top of the building, roof of the building, we have green roof. And then eventually, this is merging and disappearing in the forest. And so we thought this is cultural center, but it is a cultural center for the community. The most important space is Central Plaza. And the people are enjoying the Central Plaza. And there is the restaurants facing Central Plaza. And here we design tea house. So this is a tea house. Restaurant is here, tea house is here, and it's also openable the doors. And if weather is good, people open up the space to enjoy the continuity of exterior and interior. This is a tea house, which shows the continuity of exterior and interior. This is a small lecture hall is sometimes used for stairs, but it's just a small extra space. Exhibition space. Mm-hmm. And in Dallas, it's a new project in Dallas. It is a headquarters of Rolex America. The Dallas, most of the building is those glass box or concrete box, but instead we try to create those soft warm material, and also we brought this as a natural stones to give warmness, softness to Texas. And also the spiral movement is coming from the solution for sustainability. And as Brian Dundee is as a new Victoria Albert Museum in Scotland. Dundee is north of Scotland City, as close to this beautiful Orkney as a sea cliff. As we try to create that kind of the wildness and that kind of the softness at the edge of the city. The site is facing River Tay, and it used to be the factories and warehouses. But as a Scottish government, they decided to make the big park for waterfront of Dundee. Our idea is push the building into river and create the new relationship between nature and city. As the hint of the facade came from sea cliff of Orkney, and the randomness and the natural materials, and is giving the new atmosphere to the city edge. And again, we cut the building like this. This hall is always very important for us. The activity of the city and the people of the city, can be this hall will be the magnet of the activity to the city. And the people are using this promenade as a walking to the waterfront, and a new promenade was created by this hall. And before this building was built, river was totally separated from city. But after this hall was cut, the rivers became the part of their life. And this is a new relationship with nature is very important for city life. And the interior, so we define this space as a living room for the city. Because we believe the museum itself should be a part of city life, and the community should enjoy the living room in the museum. And then we did use natural material, and finally, Brian Dundee did use this catchphrase, living room for the city, and tote bag, they also did use this catchphrase. And in Turkey, Eskişehir here, it is not Istanbul, so we built this museum. The neighbors, the district is a typical Osman-style 2-3-story houses. Most of the buildings are wooden buildings. And we try to create harmony with those human-scale buildings. And also, so we try to create this plaza. So always, the public space is most important part of the project. This is interior. And maybe you know this as a stadium for Olympic. Because of coronavirus, Tokyo Olympic was decided to postpone to next year, and the building is almost completed. So our idea is to create the stadium open to community, open to the park. The harmony with the park is very important, and we did use local wood for the facade of the buildings. And we integrate the building into the forest by using vegetation, local vegetation. And we got a hint from those 5-story pagoda, those buildings. And there's please go back. This kind of layers is controlling natural light, the bringing natural the winds, and the stadium itself is breathing. And we try to create comfortable the environment without air conditioning, without consuming oil, and also for for interiors we did use local wood and create this kind of effect. And it shows the natural ventilation system. And we did use the recycled material. And this is the space is a raised promenade at the level of 20 meters high. And this space is always open to public, open to community. Yeah, this is a construction photo, as a completion photos. That this space is promenade, raised promenade. And most of the stadium is blocked from the city. Is only open to the audience in the sports event. But this stadium is always open to community, open to public. And this is the new station, Takanawa Station, in the center of Tokyo. And the uniqueness of this station is big Louvre. And the station and the plaza in front, the both is covered by the same big Louvre. And our idea is we designed the big Louvre. We didn't design the station. The big Louvre is covering the life, covering the traffic. Is creating a new community center for the city. And so again, we did use local wood. The roof structure is composite structure of roof and steel. And maybe last project, almost last project, this is a new museum. Has an ongoing project in Portugal. This is an extension of the old museum. The old museum is concrete box, but we add this new Louvre. And the goal of this new Louvre is create new relationship with the garden. Sometimes garden is more important than the museum itself. And then, so we create this kind of semi-outdoor space. This is as an entrance from the old building. This is new exhibition center. This is the space under the big roof. The gardens. So we designed some pavilions in the garden. Yeah, the last bit is, as I show you today is the Singapore Founders Memorial. The founders of Singapore, as a very famous politician, his name is Lee Kuan Yew, and he created this unique country from the scratch. So before, he did design the country. This as a here nothing. And also his idea for the Singapore as a green city, garden city, and then so we thought the monument for him should be a kind of garden. The building, this is the request from the client for the competition is monument, but we propose the raised gardens instead. And it's a part of the gardens, but still there are some function, amphitheaters, and some event space, and some ceremony. And the gardens and the building are totally integrated. And also people can enjoy the garden from this library. And people can enjoy the special view of Singapore. And through those projects, as I want to show you our attitude to the place. I don't want to create more boxes. I want to create relationship with environment, relationship with place. And I'm very much interested in as a culture in Czech cultures, as in Japan, because we have many buildings designed by Anthony Raymond, and Anthony Raymond designed the famous Gumma Concert Hall, and designed some churches and some beautiful hotels, and actually, he brought the special philosophy to Japan. And then today I want to show the request and my respect to Anthony Raymond, my respect to environment as well. Yeah. Thank you very much. It's almost time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation and for going through this wide range of projects that you've done over the years. I would like to kick off the discussion with some common themes, and one of the obvious common themes in your architecture is tradition, sort of respect to tradition. And I want to ask you, have you always been fascinated with traditional sort of approaches, or has that been gradual? Have you always wanted to do traditional approaches?
Is a question? Yeah, I try to learn something. I want to learn from tradition. I want to learn something from tradition. But it is not the copy of traditional building. I'm designing very contemporary building that also showing.
Yeah. Yes, can you hear us now?
Yes, yeah, I can hear.
Good, yeah, good. Yes, so that's your sort of aspect to approach to tradition. We also see through the years that your projects are not only getting bigger, but also going to other countries around the world. So, but you've always sort of said you don't want to do very tall buildings. So do you think in the future you will do even taller, or do you want to go smaller again?
That's a good question. I'm still very much interested in designing small buildings. There's a low silhouette, there's a building, there's always a very exciting chance for us. And then and sometimes we design tall building, but as a tall building is always very, very difficult as a question. And our philosophy is to make intimate space. So always we want to keep this philosophy as possible as can.
Is there perhaps a city in the world where you wanted to design but you haven't had the chance yet?
Yeah, I'm very much interested in working in working with new friends because Tokyo as already show our philosophy to the people. I want to show our method and our philosophy and our process to the new friends. And then that's the reason why I'm always traveling, but now last 3 months I couldn't travel at all. It's a very tough situation. But after the problem was solved, I want to continue to trip to a new place. Because the cultural exchange is always give us as a open us a new step of design. The good example is Frank Lloyd Wright. So he came to Japan from America, and Anthony Raymond was working as assistant of Frank Lloyd Wright. He came to Japan in 1920, and as a cultural exchange of America, Japan, and Czech, they did some exchange, very unique exchange, and they created a very interesting masterpiece, the Imperial Hotel. The history of architecture is always coming from that kind of exchange. That's the reason why I try to continue exchange.
But you've mentioned America, and you studied in Colombia as well, right? But you haven't had that many buildings in the U.S. Is that right? Like, are you planning to do more, or is there a reason for that?
And my first cultural public building in America is Portland Garden, and the people really like that building. And after that project, some interesting client want us to work in America, and maybe it's a good timing for us to work in America. Basically it's a timing.
I'm going to open the floor to some questions from Dezeen and from the audience. So to start, perhaps what factors influence the design of a facade? Is one question by Mark.
what factors? Yeah, for facade, as a harmony with as a adjacent building, harmony to neighbors is always the most important. So we often design screen for the facade, and for screen, the size of particle, size of unit is most important. And if as a Hiroshima Museum, as we did with Hiroshima Museum, I showed it at the beginning, the size is very intimate because forest, the size of the forest, size of the wood of forest is very delicate. And then we decided a small dimension, 3 centimeters with 6 centimeters depth, and pitch is 12 centimeters, and very, very intimate. But in the scale, in the city, we sometimes chose the bigger scale. In Omotesando, we designed one as a building, wooden building. That is the dimension is 60 centimeters pitch, 60 centimeter pitch, because the scale of the Omotesando street is much bigger than the scale of forest, and then the balance is always very important. And also the material as we chose carefully. In the project of Dundee, we are in Dundee, as a facade is facing River Tay, is facing the river, and the building should have the strong gesture to environment, like sea cliff. The sea cliff is always facing the basic ocean, and then there's some kind of toughness, some kind of strongness is needed for facade. And thus we learned that kind of attitude from sea cliff.
And maybe to stay on the topic of different materials, we have a question from Chris. You use a lot of materials that are combustible or haven't been used before. How do you mitigate the problem of using natural materials with the local building or fire code restrictions?
Yeah, it's always very difficult. Yeah, and luckily, we have some new technologies, inflammable wood, and with the simple treatment, and our big projects like stadium and the Takanawa station, so we did use the wood in the various spaces. So we pass the code, and then in that sense, our design is a combination of new technology and some natural traditional material. So wood is one of the oldest material for human. In Europe and in Japan, in China, most of the old buildings are made by wood. But with new technology, sometimes with new structural engineering, so we could use those old material again in the contemporary space. And as an important thing for us is working with very good structural engineer. The structure and also the structural engineers, we started the conversation from the beginning of project. So from the beginning of the project, so we are thinking about the basic structure system and also the main material. At the end of the project, it is too late to talk about that kind of issue. Then from the beginning, I myself talk with the structural engineer directly, and sometimes without. So we did a fight with them. That is important.
Okay. We have several questions about newer projects and the bigger projects and the scale of them. So I'm going to just choose one by Chris. How do you view your ideas in your book Anti-Object now, when your winning proposals or build projects have become enormous, icon-like, and monumental?
Yeah, it's true. As I wrote the book as Anti-Object in maybe 1995 or something. As in that, in 1990s, as the former generation, Isozaki and Kurokawa, those as a big stars, were designing the very symbolic buildings. And then, as I tried to criticize their attitude, environment, and then the anti-attitude is a kind of essay on my personal history in 1990s, but sometimes we should design the symbol for the place. But still, I believe my symbolism, my monumentalism is different from the symbolism of one generation. I try to create monument from the environment, keeping the respect to environment, but still some monument, because building should be the magnet to bring people to the place. And then my monumentalism is not as an eccentric monumentalism. It is a very subtle monumentalism. Yeah.
So another question from Manisha. If a particular place does not have any specific architectural features, what factor drives the design of the building?
What factors?
If there's no sort of particular architectural features to a place, what factor drive the design of your buildings? How do you process?
Yeah, sometimes it is very difficult to find the theme of project. For example, for example, the Portland, some American cities, it is not easy to find the theme. American themes, the cities are very alike, and the only few cities has a character. But after some walking, after some the casual conversation with the local people, so we always can find something for the place. In case of Portland, we found the theme of Portland, the intimacy. The Portland is Portland people are very proud of the compactness of the city. They said, we are smaller than Seattle, we are smaller than San Francisco, but it is our advantage, they said. And then our solution for the building is smallness. This is very intimate. And also we avoid the big block. So each corners we have the small corners. And then the material-wise, it is we just use a local wood, but the design-wise, we found the character of Portland, smallness. That kind of experience always happens.
We also have several questions around the current situation and the sort of the crisis that we find ourselves in, and how you kind of view whether this vision of connecting people to nature can be how this sort of crisis mode can influence that? Will we get more closer to nature?
Yeah, in 20th century, the most efficient working style is working in the concrete box, the steel box. And as a best example of the boxes is the skyscrapers. And actually it was efficient. But now there's a big box, enclosed box, causes stress and causes the health problem, and we can work in the park, we can work in nature with some the ICT technology, but people still working as a slave in the concrete box, and after Corona crisis happened, I actually often working in the park, green park, and it is very possible to work in the green park. It is stress-free and more efficient, healthier, and it is not only for my personal experience. Everybody can work in nature in a more efficient way.
I do think, though, we will consume architecture and urban or sort of public spaces differently now after the COVID crisis.
Yes, the definition of public space should be changed afterwards. And in 20th century, so public space is just outside of efficient space. It is nothing. It's just void. The space for car, just the space between the boxes. And now it is most efficient the space and most comfortable space in the city.
So do you think cities should invest more in creating public spaces and greeneries and things like that?
Yes. Now those public space is the field for landscape designer. But architects should participate to design those outdoor space, because it is not as a left space. It is a protagonist of the city.
So we have a couple of more questions, about 3 or 4. One from a completely different thing. One's from Sarah, and it's out of the shelf behind you. Is there a book that you would recommend to us?
I picked up this book. There's a haptic. The author is Kengo. Kengo is a graphic designer in Japan, and we are working together for many projects. And Kengo has organized an exhibition, the titled Haptic, 10 years ago. And then I exhibited this special paper in the exhibition. And the name of the paper, the paper is snake, because the patterns of the papers came from the skin of snake. And that I enjoy that kind of textures, and the textures can be the media to convey something to the people. It's very unique book.
Thank you. All the viewers will probably take a look at that. But we have another question from a student of architecture. If you could give one piece of advice to beginning architects, what should it be?
Yeah, it's very good question. And I advise the young student to trip to the edge of the world. So in my case, when I was a student, I tripped to Africa. I tripped to Sahara Desert. So I visited many villages in Sahara Desert. It's a 2-month trip. That trip happened in the 1970s. The 1970s, Japan was in the peak of economic expansion and the peak of industrial era. But I didn't want to study that kind of industrial design and as industrial modernism design. And also at that time, I was not interested in traditional Japanese building. At that time, the traditional Japanese building was just a building for the grandfather. And then, not as economical expansion, not nostalgic old building. Then I should escape from Japan. And then I decided to go to Africa. And Africa changed my life. I learned many things from African villages building, and their life it looks like a kind of dream, and a totally different lifestyle, totally different family system, and totally different from food and the use of material. And from the book, you cannot learn that kind of things, and then go to the edge of the world.
So, are you looking forward to going to the edge of the world? Now, I guess you're in Tokyo. You've been there for a while. What are your plans for when the borders open up? What are your plans for next few months?
Yes, I'm thinking about many possibilities. Maybe maybe in 2-3 months it is difficult to trip to other countries, but even in Japan, I can find some edge. The south of Japan, there are beautiful islands, small beautiful islands in the south of Japan. I want to feel the edge of the world in Japan.
Well, that sounds very, very nice. I have one last question, and that is sort of my personal question. You often talk about architects that they should be a lot more humble and beginning architects and everything. And I wonder why should architecture usually is not very connected with humbleness? It's big often. It's very dominated with quite big egos. Why should architects become more humble, according to you?
Because the architects has big responsibility. Because products of architects can always give big influence to environment. Sometimes very destructive. And then compare with artists, compare with as other designers, so the responsibility of the artist is huge. It's very risky, and then we should be very careful. We should, and then we should be humble. Starting from humbleness, still, so we have big responsibility. We sometimes are very dangerous, but starting from ego is more dangerous, further dangerous, and then should go to the humbleness.
And one final question. during this time of crisis, I've often heard people around me saying that they've come to some sort of a realization, whether it's personal or work-related. So have you come to any realizations? Have you changed anything during this part of town, this time of lockdown? Have you done any of that? Any changes? Any realization?
Yeah, actually, I became as a healthier than before. As the crisis happened, half a month I was traveling, and I didn't think about the rhythm of life. But now I should control my body by myself. And then I was doing a stretch in the morning, the walking in the afternoons, and as I try to create my own rhythm to make my body stronger, healthier, and as health is the basis of creativity. I found it's just a big finding. To be active is basically very important, but activeness is also can come from health. And then in last 3 months, I learned I found the importance of my health.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Kengo Kuma, for joining us for the lecture and for the Q&A. And I hope you find the edge of the world that you're looking for.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Very exciting talk.
Thank you. And for all of our viewers, today we have a whole day of lectures together with Dezeen at the Virtual Design Festival. So you should check that out. In the afternoon, we have Snoheta, Kobe Architects, and Interboro. So you should check out www.urbantalks.camp and also Dezeen. And thank you for joining us. This is Stepan from the Center of Architecture and Metropolitan Planning in Prague. Bye.
Bye.